Welcome back to the Dimer Sports Betting Podcast. Hello, it is time for another great show. Week 12 is upon us. Thursday Night Football is here. I'll take you through a full preview of Bills and Texans tonight, give you all of the ways to bet this game, our primetime parlay, and plenty more. Of course, there's much more to look at for Week 12. We'll give you all of the betting angles you need to know. We will unveil our first touchdown round robin, and then end, as always, with our personal plays of the week. Dave, how are you today, sir?
Doing great. Just another day in the life of a Dimer's podcast host.
I mean, this is something everyone dreams of, I feel like, Dave. It can only be us, though. That's the thing. Hey, let's talk on the king of the court quickly before we get into Thursday Night Football. On Tuesday, we gave you some projections that just continue to be dialed in. What happened?
Yeah, pretty chalky this time. But once again, the Dimers model had the top highest projected player of the night, identified as the top highest PRA player of the night. Luka Doncic, I think he had 52, maybe 51 PRA. Don't remember exactly. We had him at 48.8, I believe. Talked about how if anyone was going to beat him, it was going to take at least 50. And nobody else had that. And it was another successful target for the Dimers bot. $30 bonus bet return, so nothing crazy. Chalk play, but it's actually more than Luka returned the first time around. So pretty good all around. So.
Absolutely. Cade Cunningham had a good game as well. He was in all of his categories, statistically producing once again. But yeah, Luka, hard to beat Luka. When Luka's on his A game like that, good luck to anybody. The stars keep starring, which makes the king of the court promo something difficult to navigate sometimes, but we'll do our best to help you using our model's projections. All right, let's turn to football. That's what everybody wants from us here on Thursday. It's Bills and Texans tonight on Thursday Night Football. Houston 5.5-point dogs, totals at 43.5. Take us through it, Dave. What is the model like here?
Yeah, I'll pull up our projections in a minute, but real quick, we got Texans plus 5.5 at 54%, little 4.2% edge there. Under 43.5 is a coin flip, 50-50. Negative edge on that, minus 1.2, so no value at all. And then Texans money line, 32%, little 2.2% edge, fair at plus 210. I believe you can currently get them up to plus 230. That's at Caesars. You may want to shop around, of course, see if there's a better price that we're not picking up on. But as the model works, the best price should be in here. So a little bit of value there if you think the Texans pull out the upset. I'll pull up our projections here and we'll walk through this game a little bit more in detail. So as I mentioned, the best bet from the model is Texans plus 5.5. 54.2% exactly, 2.2% edge, minus 108 on FanDuel. My initial thought is that I don't hate the bet at all. I don't love the number. Screams a hook on the outside of a late field goal to me. So even plus 6 would be far more favorable. Would consider that if you're going to play this. We talked about this with some other spreads this week, but at minus 108 for the standard line, you're probably getting pretty decent odds just buying that half a point, which can make all the difference. Probably only about minus 120 or so on that spread. This was even plus 100 yesterday when I started putting this together. So should be some value out there to get the Texans at plus 6. If you, like me, aren't really a fan of the 5.5 number. The Texans, for their shortcomings, are a hard team to fade. Davis Mills under center hasn't been a complete disaster. They're actually winning some games, 3 of their last 4, including against a pretty solid Niners team. They lost to the Broncos, whose defense is absolutely elite by just 3. And they still have the best defense in the NFL by yards allowed, 258.1 per game total, which is just really hard for any team to get drives going. A lot of field goals against this team. So keeping scores low. We've seen that all year in Texans games. They are just one of 3 teams with under 20 touchdowns allowed all season. Broncos and Rams have 17. So those are elite defenses. The company that they are in is, shut your offense down and let Davis Mills, for now, chip away and keep us in games, which has been happening. Bills are missing Dalton Kincaid, Curtis Samuel, and newly signed Mecole Hardman, which is kind of just funny that they got beat so badly. They went out, signed Mecole Hardman because they needed a receiver. Then Josh Allen did it all himself last week, and now Mecole Hardman isn't playing. So just kind of a lot up in the air there for Buffalo, especially in the passing game, which is something we'll talk about in a little bit. Josh Allen went absolutely bonkers last week, as mentioned, 6 total touchdowns, but the Bucs defense is not even close to the Texans level. So personally, I think it's going to be a little hard for the Bills to really stack points in this one. I'm sure they'll have a few decent drives, but the passing game, as we talked about, leaves so much to be desired. They don't have pretty much their best player in it in Dalton Kincaid, Josh Allen's most reliable target, and this Texans defense has continued to shut teams down time and time again. So I just don't like the plus 5.5. If this was plus 6, I'd be smashing it. So I would just say, personally, I'm not fading the model at all, but I would just take that extra half a point because you're in a much better spot.
I like it. Yeah, I really don't know what to do with the Bills. I feel like this team is vulnerable. I think we've discussed that pretty much at length this year. And they're still overpriced a little bit in the market for me. So I think they are a good fade target team. Houston can just they're so capable of like a total dud any given week. And I worry what this team will be this week given the spot here. I think Kincaid out is big for the Bills. Like he's kind of been the go-to when things get tough guy for me. It's kind of Josh Allen's one reliable safety valve that I trust on that team. And without him, I do think it's a sizable loss. So I lean to the Texans here as well. I'm glad that's the side the model shows value on. I'm just still kind of up in the air on how strongly I want to play this. Like, can I get this from a lean in my mind to an official play? I don't fully know if I'm going to get there yet, but I don't know. Is that sort of where you're at on this too? Or like, is this an official play for you?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I would make it official at 6.5, personally. Just the number's gross to me. And like you said, the Texans, they're capable of a dud. They've been pretty solid lately. Davis Mills is getting Nico Collins the ball, which I'll be honest, I didn't really think would happen. I thought he would suffer pretty poorly, and I believe he's got 75 plus yards in 3 straight games. I think one game with 90 and one over 100. Bills passing defense is really good, so there might not be as many opportunities tonight. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a close grinder of a game, probably an ugly game, I think, given the penchant for both of these defenses. In the passing game, particularly, the Bills rushing defense is very soft, and we'll talk about that a good bit. But it's just there's not a lot to be confident in from any particular player angle, which just screams close, low-scoring, ugly game to me. So yeah, I will say I'll personally make this a play at plus 6. But yeah,
key number. Yeah, you're using my terminology now. We're looking for key number. So
you've converted me.
I honestly, I think for me, like, and there's no way to do this that shows value, but if it was 7, I think I'd play it. Even 6 is like, I don't want to get hooked by a point because the Bills win by a touchdown. I might look to live bet this game, honestly. If Buffalo gets out to like an early, maybe score on the first drive, even like a 3-0 lead, and it just bumps the line up to above a touchdown, that might be the time that I try to jump in. That can be a really smart way to bet too. I feel like we don't talk enough about live betting on this show. So with these numbers, it's very important with NFL betting to kind of wait for the right spot. To me, at 5.5, hope the Bills score first, maybe jump on it at 7 or above. You got anything to add on that outlook?
Only that, yeah, I think that's a great idea. If they score an early field goal, you could probably get this at 8.5, which is a great number. And speaking of live betting, an underutilized part of the Dimers website is we do have an NFL live betting tool that every quarter will put up recommended bets based on the latest probabilities. And sometimes you can find some pretty sneaky value in there. So don't sleep on that.
50% off Dimers Pro. Take advantage of tools like this at your disposal. All right, so there's our hub for Bills-Texans on Thursday night. We've got our same game parlay coming soon as well. First, let's take you through some betting angles to keep an eye on for Thursday night football. Beginning with this, Houston's running backs against a Bills rushing defense that is just not very good. We have talked about the Houston backfield and the changes between Woody Marks and Nick Chubb a few different times throughout the season. Chubb's been okay. He's averaging just over 4 yards per carry this year. He has single-digit touches in 3 of his last 5 games. He has not scored since week 5. So if you are looking to back Nick Chubb, you are a braver man than I. But does that make you want to back Woody Marks, Dave?
It does. I will also say Nick Chubb's line is only like 22.5. He's hit that in 8 out of 10 games this season. It's one of our top trends. So you can get him really low. But I mean, single digit carries is really rough. Granted, this is a really soft defense. So you might actually be able to steal some pretty good Chubb value if you're willing to go above his line. But I'm not really going to touch Chubb in this, except for maybe one little thing we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, I love Marks in this game. We'll talk about him some more. He's just getting all of the volume lately, double-digit touches in 5 straight games. Season high 18 carries last week, though he didn't do a ton with it. 44 yards, probably an outlier in that regard. He's also getting all the receiving work, 3+ targets in 4 of his last 5. He's not the most efficient runner, 3.5 yards per carry, but the upside is with him based on volume, age, and his scoring equity in this offense. 4 touchdowns to Nick Chubb's 2. And like we said, hasn't scored since week 5, Chubb. That 4 touchdowns is tied for the most on this team with Nico Collins. So it just seems like him just kind of going through some maybe rookie growing pains. He wasn't a top projected running back prospect, so there's going to be some adjustment period, but it really seems like the team's moving to him as the go-to guy. It's all Woody in our projections, 64.5 rushing yards, 15.1 receiving, and a 43.7% anytime TD probability. Meanwhile, Nick Chubb just 26.4 rushing, 6-point run receiving, and only a 17% anytime TD probability. So pretty big stay away for me for Chubb as far as anything beyond like the FanDuel jackpot, which we'll talk about. However, this Bills rushing defense is bad. It's 153 yards per game, second most in the NFL. 17 TDs allowed is the most. So could be a big game for both backs. Don't really know what the distribution is going to be like. If you're going off of recent games, it's going to be all Woody Marks with some Nick Chubb change of pace stuff. But with the Bills, like pretty elite passing defense, under 170 yards per game, I think. Your only concern here really is if the Texans fall behind too much too early and they have to abandon the run. But I don't think you're even going to do that in such a good spot. And then try, if you're falling behind, I don't think you're going to try and attack a top 2 passing defense when you can attack a 31st ranked rushing defense. So,
yep. Yeah, makes sense. I think back to even just the game value too on 5.5 with Houston. To me, it's going to be heavy dose of running if they're going to find success. Like if they cover, I think that means successful ground games from probably both of these guys at the numbers. So to me, almost, I think I'd rather back the props on the ground than Houston at +5.5. And like I said, wait to fire live if you want to back Houston outright on the spread. Let's look elsewhere in this game. Let's talk Buffalo's passing offense here. Josh Allen was amazing last week. He went into do-it-myself mode, 6 total touchdowns. You compared this to the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, there were 6 of them, 6 touchdowns, 6 stones. He full on went, I'll do it myself, Thanos mode, 3 on the ground, 3 in the air. Had to overcome 2 picks, which does not sit well with me because he cost me the highest single player fantasy score side prize in my league. So I'm a little bitter without those 4 points from the picks, but I don't think he's going to do that again this week. This Texans defense is absolutely locked down, as we mentioned earlier, been able to snuff out just about any offense that they've faced, both fronts, passing and rushing. Khalil Shakir here leads all receivers in our projections, 49.7 yards, but only a 27% TD probability. Then you got Josh Palmer at 35 yards, 15% touchdown, Gabe Davis, 32 yards, 17% touchdown. And then Dawson Knox, 30 yards, also 21% touchdown. So it's really bleak for the Bills pass catchers. And you really don't know how they're going to be distributed because this is both an elite defense by the Texans that's probably going to limit Josh Allen's passing volume. You might be looking at 5 targets max for some of these guys. And that just doesn't sit well with me as far as if you're trying to back them. I'm not touching any Bills like receiving props in this game unless I'm going under, which I'll probably do like a chaos. All things go wrong for the Bills, bet the under on a bunch of props. But it's just not really an offense I want a piece of through the air.
Yeah, there's no inspiring recipients. There just isn't. It's been a story of parts of Josh's career, but certainly this year, it's the barest that it has gotten in the Josh Allen cupboard. So I don't blame you. I like the disaster zone prop angle, though. Like maybe cook up just like every possible disaster night goes wrong. Houston moneyline parlay too. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. Some positive correlation if you mix those up a bit too. So you probably won't get crazy odds, but you'll things will line up pretty well.
Yep. All right, let's talk about the Thursday Night Football jackpot on FanDuel. How should we go after this ugly game?
So I'm gonna try and capitalize on it as we usually do with some deep cuts. You can look in here, see our first touchdown probabilities led by James Cook, 11.7%, Josh Allen, 11%, Woody Marks, 10.4%. So none of those are bad choices as far as getting in the end zone first or last. You are going to get a much smaller bonus bet return if it is one of them. And if we're attacking a weakness in this game, it's basically only the Bills' rushing defense. Both passing defenses are very good, and the Texans' rushing defense is very good. So you're betting against the grain if you go against either of those. But if you go on the ground, you can go Nick Chubb, be a little contrarian. He's 2.9% for a first touchdown. And as I mentioned, only 15% for an anytime. That should make him a pretty low, at least in the larger picture, a low bet guy for this promo. There is another play I do like based on the deep cut and value from the model. See if it's still here. Yep. Ty Johnson. He's plus 650 for an anytime touchdown. 18% probability, or 16% now, but that would be fair odds around plus 500. He's had both of his touchdowns this season in his past 3 games. He's also peaked at 4 touches in any game this season. So he's a super long shot. There's not a lot of trends to go by, but he did have a pretty big play when he scored in one of his recent games. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but he just, I don't know. He's a guy that's not going away, even though his volume is low. He seems to get some key touches. He has gotten them in the red zone. And if they get close, you got to figure that they might try to do something a little creative rather than just do the Josh Allen up the middle or James Cook in the red zone at the goal line. So I would go Nick Chubb or Ty Johnson in this one. Personally, Ty Johnson's going to get you theoretically a quote unquote huge bonus bet compared to Nick Chubb. So consider that as well when you're making your selection. I don't know which one I'll do. Ask me in the Dimers Discord. I'll have a better idea for you closer to kickoff.
Yeah, let's go big. I'll go Ty Johnson. That's my official lock it in move this week. I think this game's ugly. When it's ugly, I like to take the higher risk shots at this. I don't know. It's hard for me to honestly. I know I'm supposed to come on here and like build excitement for this game. The only exciting part of this game for me is
we're getting paid by Amazon.
It's right. It's trying to find the ugliest ways to bet it, and to me, a Ty Johnson first touchdown feels right up the alley for me. Let's go. All right. Here's an exciting way to bet Thursday Night Football. Undoubtedly, it's our prime time parlay.
Thursday Night Lotto.
You can play this one plus 405 odds at DraftKings. They have a 30% boost that you can get this up to almost plus 550. What do we got?
All right, so we're going to start off with Josh Allen, but as mentioned, the passing game is tough, so we're not touching it. We're going for 25 plus rushing yards. He's projected for 33.6, above his line of 31.5. You can consider that 31.5. I did. I was happy to tease it down for the sake of this parlay. I would have put him in at 30 plus, but they don't have that option on DraftKings. So consider that for your own wagers when you do this. He's hit 25 plus rushing yards in 8 out of 10 games this season. His rushing appeal is much higher in this game, given that he'll probably have trouble getting things going through the air. Texans only allow 19 rushing yards to QBs per game, but that's not really the whole story, I think, on paper with that single stat. That's still only 18th in the NFL, so it's not like elite levels. And QBs have hit 30-plus rushing yards in 3 straight games against them. Cam Ward, Trevor Lawrence, and Bo Nix. Quarterbacks, I think you could say, are at least of a similar mold to Josh Allen with the penchant for rushing. But Bo Nix has rushed for 140 yards less, I can't think of which one, than Josh Allen all season. And he's the closest one to them. So there's really nothing that has me shying away from Josh Allen putting in the work with his legs and at least getting 25 yards here. I think he's a threat for a little bit of a ladder play. Not anything supported by the model there, but something that my personal gut says could be in play tonight. Woody Marks takes up our next 2 legs. We're going to get him for 60-plus rushing yards with a projection of 65.1 from the Dimers model. Now, he's only hit 60 yards in 3 of 10 games, but again, not really the full story. You basically have to throw out his first 3 games when he saw single-digit carries when Chubb was the lead back. Since he's taken over this backfield, he's hit this in 3 of 6 games, getting double-digit carries in each of those. He's facing a Bills defense ranked 31st versus the run, allowing 121.2 rush yards per game to running backs. He's coming off of a season-high 18 carries, as mentioned, and a projection of 65.1 here really supports the over. And if you're into this sort of thing, he's had an alternating trend of 60-plus and under 60 over his past 5 games. He went on under last week, so, the alternating trend would put him at 60 this week. I don't know how much stock you want to put into something like that. But as mentioned, I think his 44-yard game last week feels like an outlier given he had his highest volume. And it was kind of a weird divisional game against the Titans, even though they should have been rolling in it. And we'll close out with him, Woody Marks, to score. As mentioned, 4 touchdowns is the most on the team. All of them have come in the red zone. He has 16 red zone carries over the past 4 weeks compared to Chubb's 5. And Chubb has not converted any of those into a score. The Bills' red zone defense is substantially better than their actual whole rushing defense, but it's not enough to shy away from Marks. It's not like they shut teams completely down. His 43.7% TD probability is the highest for Houston and the 3rd highest in this game. Plus 405, you can get yourself a 30% boost at DraftKings. Get this to about plus 550.
I like this too because as we're talking through all of the sort of, unheralded skill position guys in this game on both sides and saying, yeah, it's an ugly game. It's going to be randoms that might be worth taking a sprinkle on. We're really backing the 2 guys that we know are going to be heavily involved in this game. Josh Allen is going to do Josh Allen things. Woody Marks is really the only person on the Texans worth backing week to week right now for me. So really on a 3-legger, we do this every single week. Sometimes I like when 2 of the legs are one player and we're just rooting for a big Woody Marks game tonight.
Yeah.
4-1. I feel really good about this, Dave. Good work on this.
Thank you, sir. Hopefully we cash, and we're talking about this on next week's show.
Yes, sir. We can only dream. All right, folks, that is everything you need to know for Thursday Night Football. Good luck with your bets in Bills-Texans tonight. Let's step broadly outside of Thursday night and take a look at everything else that you need to look for in Week 12. Starting with storyline number 1, Joe Burrow back? Maybe? What's the latest, Dave?
So full practice participant on Wednesday for the first time since his Week 2 injury. We'll need to see him practice in full today. They're probably having practice right now. I could probably check and see, but I'm not. But yeah, to know he's ready to go, we'll need to know that he's actually practicing and that, full practice yesterday didn't aggravate the toe injury. But even then, Zach Taylor is playing super coy about it. I'm not sure yet when asked about Burrow playing this Sunday. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco was also limited yesterday and is listed as questionable. So, they need him no matter what. It's kind of silly to say, but the Bengals aren't completely out of it at 3-7. Highly, highly unlikely they make a run. I mean, they're literally minus 8,000 to miss the playoffs, the shortest odds on the board. But they'll need some gifts from the Jags, Steelers, and Chiefs pretty much to do this. Odds are against them, but I mean, if they want anything going, any positives to take away from this end of season run, they're going to want Joe Burrow back. And this is a winnable game, I think, for the Bengals with Joe Burrow in the lineup. We do have a little value on the Bengals in this game already with Flacco in our projections, but Joe Burrow just changes things. Flacco's been solid, but there's a bunch of Flacco games in there. 2 games with touchdowns, 3 picks in his last 2 games. They only won 2 of the games without him. For all the praises we were singing of Flacco, getting the ball to the guys, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, everyone's been looking good offensively. They're not winning any games to show for it. So they have any chance of anything in this season, it's Joe Burrow here. It's not, I mean, they're 2.5 games back of the Jags, who aren't a confident team. So it's totally possible, but just unlikely. But anyway, if he's back, you'd assume the Bengals wide receiver core gets a little bit of a boost. They're without Jamar Chase for a 1-game suspension here. So T. Higgins and Andre Iosivas leading the way. Currently, T. Higgins has a 72-yard, 46% touchdown probability. Iosivas at 39 yards and 27%. Flacco's projected for 249 yards, and this is a small sample size, but I went back and looked in our week 1 and 2 projections. We had Joe Burrow for 282 and 279. So safe to say Higgins and co would get at least a small bump if Burrow were to start, since his increase in passing yards obviously is going to funnel through them, most likely his good guys. The Pats have a notoriously stout rushing defense, but the passing game is very middle of the pack here, and they've let some receivers do some pretty good work against them lately. 115 and a touchdown for Ibuka, 118 and 3 touchdown for Drake London, and both those in the past 3 weeks. I like both Bengals receivers in this game, regardless of who starts. But personally, I'm like all in on T. Higgins here. He scored in 5 of his past 6 games with 6 touchdowns in that span. No Jamar Chase, so he's wide receiver 1, and he's already like pretty much a wide receiver 1 talent-wise. I think the only way he's not finding the end zone is if he's completely schemed out of this game, or the Pats put Flacco on his butt all game. But we'll talk about him a little bit more in our best bets.
Yep. Yes, sir, we will. T. Higgins has been named to watch, absolutely, with his quarterback back potentially. I get more intrigued for sure. How about Shedeur Sanders? First NFL start. Well, it was ugly when we got his first snaps last week. I don't know how inspired Browns fans should be here, but hey, for at least we know this. There's no drama this week. There's no subtweeting. There's no your job, my job. This is just, what do you got? It's your team. Let's see. What do you expect from Shedeur?
Yeah, I mean, it's his chance to silence the haters, or at least, make a statement game that he should have been the guy. And none of that will really matter if you just come out and do your job and you look good. No one's going to care about all the preseason drama. At least no one that matters. But yeah, uninspiring, of course, from last week. 4 of 16 for 47 yards in relief of Dylan Gabriel. Not a very good sign. Also not an ideal situation, or even a full game sample size to really be using to judge. Getting thrown in there against a Ravens defense, a divisional game, and with guys that you don't play with in practice. So, however, I should just say they are playing the Raiders this week. So you couldn't get much of a better opportunity, at least for your first start. Maybe the Bengals, someone like that. But the Raiders could barely get it going against the Cowboys defense, and the Browns defense is much, much better. So they should set Shedeur up with opportunities. It's up to him to capitalize, though. Aside from Max Crosby, I don't think there's really anything to be scared of in Vegas' defense. Maybe we'll see, Jamal Adams over there make a random game because he'll take advantage of a rookie with the yips, but he'll at least have a full week to practice with the first unit. Our first projections have him at 167 passing, 18 rushing, 11% for a rushing TD, so he's fair at plus 900. That kind of interests me if you can get good odds. He's plus 550, so not really close at all as far as fair. But rookies like to run, they like to scramble. If they don't see something they freak out a little bit. And sometimes that works out and we see them find the end zone or break a big play. So if you can get better value on Shedeur for a touchdown, it might be something worth looking at. But low passing projections obviously mean a pretty low outlook for the receiving core. Jerry Jeudy, 38 yards, 17% TD probability. Harold Fannin, 35 yards, 20% TD. Tillman, 34, 19%. David Njoku's got the highest touchdown probability of them all at 21%. I think it's kind of funny how this box score mimics what we project for the Bills, who are undoubtedly a much better team, but the reality of that matchup and the reality of Shedeur Sanders getting his first start seem to actually align pretty heavily here. Big winner for me is Quinshon Judkins, probably in line for his fifth game with 20 plus carries. Raiders do allow under 90 rushing yards per game, so they're not like a pushover as far as the ground game's concerned, but the defense is certainly soft enough to attack. I don't know how I will, but I am going to have something on my card in this game. I'll probably post it in the Dimers Discord, so you can look out for it there closer to the weekend. I won't do it until probably Sunday, but I'll play a little SGP in this, I think. Something banking on Shedeur Sanders having a decent game, at least getting the ball to one or two key players, Quinshon Judkins getting in the end zone, something like that. And then maybe throw in a pick for him as well, because it's probably going to happen.
I was going to say there's got to be some negative. That's the route I'm going with Shedeur, respectfully to Shedeur. I actually think he's a talented kid. I don't think he's ever literally at any level played behind a good offensive line. I mean, he played non-Division I. He was basically playing backyard football. Then he goes to Colorado, where his dad just put the worst offensive line in the high major entire league in front of him, and he just built horrible habits. And you saw some of those horrible habits against Baltimore in his debut. Max Crosby is not the guy I want to see for that. So I'm gonna be looking into some sack props. I'm gonna be looking into honestly, like even some weird, quirky, like Browns to submit a safety. Like that's probably 19-1 for Las Vegas to get to Shedeur in the end zone. That's the way I'm going to bet this game. Maybe even some like specific drive to end in a turnover. But if you can't tell, I'm a Shedeur Sanders skeptic, to say the least. Let's go to the last storyline here. I think this is the game of the week. I think you agree. Colts and Chiefs should be an entertaining one here. A lot at stake.
Yeah, Bucks, Rams, Cowboys, Eagles, equally good games, I'd say, but this one's got the most at stake for sure. Chiefs could fall below 500. I think that'd be the first time since early in the season. Colts enter as pretty significant 3.5-point dogs. Dimers model giving very slight edge to the Chiefs. 50-50 split on the spread, but our final score is 27-23. So just by 0.5 point in the Chiefs' favor. Model says it's tough sledding for the Colts offense outside Jonathan Taylor here. 69% probability to score a TD for JT. No one else on the Colts clears 28%. Top five for the Chiefs are all 29% or higher. So a bit more rounded out on the Chiefs side and very top heavy on the Colts. But beyond JT, just doesn't look like our model is expecting very much, at least as far as scoring, from the rest of the Colts' weapons. Colts rushing defense is really good. 5th in the NFL, only 8 touchdowns allowed, but their passing defense is 25th, and Mahomes has a pretty big projection of 273 passing yards in this game. We know that their running game isn't very good, and this is going to be a tougher rushing matchup. So, we haven't been inspired by what we've seen from the Chiefs this year, but it wouldn't surprise me to see kind of one of those classic Mahomes games. Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, who I was dogging on last week, but it wouldn't really surprise me if all 3 of those guys score in this game. It's going to be a good one. Probably going to be tough. Like I said, tough stuff for the Colts. Props wise, we do have an interesting angle here. No value on Jonathan Taylor for a touchdown. Not totally surprising. He's like minus 280, but we do have him for a pair of touchdowns. 33% plus 240 gets you a little 3% edge. 11.3% for 3 at plus 1100 gets you a little 3% edge as well. Going to be one of the harder matchups for him to do that. But the Colts seem to know that the key to winning pretty much every game is just give Jonathan Taylor the ball. Old Priest Holmes style. That's like against these Chiefs. Just give him the ball over and over again, and he will do the work. So worth a look. Jonathan Taylor, 2+, 3+. Probably not going to touch a lot of Colts props in this game. I think I will do something silly like 3 touchdowns for the Chiefs. Kelsey, Worthy, Rice, something like that. TBD for like a nice little Sunday lotto. But yeah, should shape up to be a good game. Dimer's model's got it pretty much a toss-up, which I think is reasonable given that we have a team performing above expectations, a team performing below expectations, and they're coming to meet in Kansas City too. So tough place to play.
Yep. I'll be on Colts. I'm ready to wipe our hands clean, stick a fork in the Chiefs, and I think this could be the week that happens. All right, thank you. Plenty of storylines. Feels like we're getting to a critical inflection point on the season here, and there's a lot to look forward to each week. Now it's time to finalize our Week 12 best bets.
Weekend best bets.
All right. So 1-1 on game lines last week. No luck on our TD scorer of Gibbs. So we're looking for another bounce back. Have 3 spread picks this week instead of 2. They are all high value. Little caveat here. We do have a pretty high projection on the Browns to cover, but just figured it would be in our best interest to not take a team starting a quarterback for the first time. If you want to bet that, go ahead, but we're not going to make it an official play for the sake of that. I'll pull these up, all 3 of these here, and we'll get into these. So Cardinals 2.5 is a pretty interesting one because we talked about this on Tuesday's show, and we talked about getting it out to 3 or 3.5. And last night, I posted on our socials that clip we talked about because it did, in fact, move to +3, and our probability was up to 61%, just around where we predicted it would be in that scenario on Tuesday. It's back down to 2.5. You might be able to get it at 3. This just says to me the line is bouncing around a bit. So all the more reason I think it's worth buying that point. Like it was before, it's +100 on the spread. So the tax to get that extra half or full point is pretty negligible for your odds anyway. And you're still going to get the value based on the model's projection. One thing that I find not interesting, but pretty key is that no Marvin Harrison Jr. once again in this one. He has been ruled out already, which I think was probably obvious given he had appendicitis surgery, and that seems like a tough thing to come back from just a week later. Meanwhile, Brian Thomas Jr. on the other side could be back for the Jaguars after missing the past 2 games. So one team getting a little healthier, one team still missing a key piece. Just 2 touchdowns this season for Brian Thomas Jr. Only 2 games over 55 yards, though. So you're not exactly saying he's giving the Jags a super boost. Obviously, his presence is important, but wasn't exactly lighting it up before. Projected final score, 24-23 for the Jags. So puts the Cardinals in upset territory as well. 44% probability there. A little bit of an edge at +140. And as we talked about on Tuesday, it's just hard to be confident in this Jaguars team right now. You can say the same thing about the Cardinals, but this is a really strong probability in what feels like a coin flip game. So if you're looking for any sort of data edge, the model is telling you here it's with the Cardinals 2.5.
Yep. I'm in. Fade the Jags. I don't need anything other than that right now. I'm out on that team with how they've been week to week. So Arizona, good spot here for me. Let's go down this list. So it would be Cincinnati that is next here. Bengals catching 6.5 against the Pats. Very high probability at 57% here.
Yep. So this is one I debated putting in here, but I didn't want to fade the model's probability and high value since it was right alongside with the others. And I think it is a decent spot. Obviously, we talked about this one earlier with the Joe Burrow segment, so not a ton more to discuss. But I just think this is a good play, good probability from the model. The offense has plenty of upside, even with Jamar Chase out. We know this. We've seen the skill position players do work. During this 8-game win streak by the Patriots, these are the teams that they've beaten by at least a touchdown. Panthers, and that's the week 4 Panthers, mind you, not the Panthers as of late. The Titans, the Browns, and the Jets. anything resembling a good offense has covered this number. The Bucs, the Falcons, the Bills, plus the Saints. They're a good team that just doesn't slam the door shut on decent teams. The Bengals are our only underdog money line this week with a high value signal, 32% upset probability, plus 365 or 265, 4.4% edge. I'm not saying to go and do that, but I'm saying the model is very much in favor of the Bengals holding a close game here. And the trends for the Patriots suggest that they aren't going to run away with this game, in which there are a number of good skill possession players, even with Jamar Chase out. Pretty short pitch here, but I like this bet, and I like it even more if Burrow plays. Kind of wonder what the line will be if Burrow plays.
I'm glad you ended the way you just ended that. You like this even more if Joe Burrow plays. It sounds blasphemous to say that. I get why. I mean, he has a reputation as one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the entire league, but let's also not forget Joe Burrow has been the quarterback of a lot of Bengals losses throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
Just having Joe Burrow is not necessarily, I don't know, a guarantee to something great. But yeah, I think, I don't know, having him back this week, though, just to me, regardless of what the history has been, is going to be such an emotional boost. Like this year, he only started in 2 games since he won both of those games. It doesn't matter what happened last year when they were a completely different team. Like there's reason to believe just the presence alone could be enough to power this team through. So I'm into this. I also think when you look at the Pats, as good as they've been, doesn't it just feel like they're like the one team that's due for a loss?
Yeah, absolutely. For pretty much all the reasons I've said, and we've talked about for a couple weeks here, like they're not beating division winners. Their good teams are at least keeping it close. Something's got to break for this team eventually. This team's not going to go 15-2. 8-game win streak here. There's got to be something coming.
Yeah, the head scratching what just happened game. I feel like it bites every good NFL team at least once. And I don't know. I look at Cincinnati again. If Burrow's back, it makes this a much more fun play. But kind of what I was very poorly verbalizing there is even if he doesn't play, I don't think it necessarily swings this game one way or the other in a crazy fashion for Cincy. So I see the value. Our model sees the value too. I like Cincy. I'm glad you kept that on the card. One more this week, and it's your boys, the Cowboys.
It is my boys. We'll be rooting for my boys extra hard in this one. However, if you didn't get this early, we are on the wrong side of a little bit of line movement. It was 3.5 on Tuesday, but still a solid 57% probability here, 6.5% edge, just slightly down from what I believe was 58 and change on Tuesday. Not much to go over here since we talked about it and nothing's really changed, but we will lock it in as a best bet of the week. Cowboys defense, got to say it looks a little bit better. It was the Raiders last week, and I got to see some more sample size, more action, but they got a ton of players back with Overshawn, Malik Hooker, plus the additions of Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson, immediately made an impact. Like Quinnen Williams got a sack. He's not even a big sack guy, but he unlocked the rest of that line. There were so many pressures getting generated across the defensive front, and it's going to give the Cowboys a little bit of a different look, I think, on defense. Their coverage is so bad for the most part that getting pressure is pretty much their best chance at secondary coverage, if that makes sense. The way you get a coverage sack, that's basically what they need to do to get coverage incompletions. But this will be the best version of the defense they tried out all year. So I'm feeling more confident about this than I would have 2 weeks ago. The overs dropped a point from 48.5 to 47.5. Model's 50-50 on that. I don't think a big, thing to worry about there. Either side that you're on. The Eagles defense, pretty good as far as passing going. Only 9 passing TDs, but they are still ranked middle of the league. They give up a good bit of yards. It's going to be hard to shut down the duo of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. It's one of the best there is in the NFL. If one of them is, since they've both been healthy and in the game, if one of them isn't covered, the other one is wide open. I saw multiple times in that game, George Pickens just standing there with no one around him because they're sending 2 defenders up the field to cover CeeDee Lamb. And if it happens the other way around, you got CeeDee Lamb. Both guys are incredible yards after the catch guys. Probably going to be some big games in play for either of them. 78 yards and a 41% TD for Lamb, 69 yards and 37% for Pickens. So both pretty solid games, pretty similar range. And yeah, as I said, the key is going to be pressure, but really both sides. If the Eagles want to keep Pickens and Lamb from doing work, they're going to need pressure on Dak. They're going to need him to scramble, to throw erratically, and get some sacks, because I just don't think they're going to shut down those two on their own.
Yep. Yeah. Makes sense. Cowboys underdogs. It's been just a bankroll builder all season long for the most part. So that should be a very highly entertaining game. Not to spoil my personal play this week, but I'll be backing something in the Cowboys-Eagles game as well. More to come at the end of the show. There you have it, folks. 3 underdogs. Cowboys plus 2.5. Bengals plus 6.5. Cowboys plus 3. Go ahead and take it, folks. Let's do it this week. There are our best bets for week 12. Make sure you subscribe or sign up for, that's the better word, sign up for Dimers Pro. Podcast is the promo code that you need. You can get 50% off of Dimers Pro. You can get these insights in real time all season long. We've got probabilities, edges for every single game in the NFL, every single game in every sport that you could be betting, player props, and more. Go check it out. Make sure you don't miss it. It's time for our first touchdown round robin next, and I see some names I like this week.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, I hope. So we are looking for a nice one this week. We did not get there last week, but we're feeling pretty good here, as we've got 5 guys, a bit of them from the top of the board, a bit further down, all some pretty good matchups here. So first up, Jahmyr Gibbs of the Lions, 17%. He is our second highest probability of the entire week, highest on Sunday with Christian McCaffrey on Monday Night Football. Got a good matchup with a soft Giants defense. Lions are projected to and should win this game, and that bodes well for Gibbs. Every time Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't scored this year, the Lions lost. Every time Jahmyr Gibbs has scored, the Lions win. If they want to win this game, they need to give Jahmyr the Gibbs a ball, and they should do it nice and early so he cashes our first touchdown prop, and they get a nice early lead. Next up, Derrick Henry, 16%. He's a top 4 probability of the week, behind only Gibbs, CMC, and Jonathan Taylor. Coming off his first score since week 8, and he is facing the Jets, who gave up a 3-piece to Travion Henderson just last week. He has not been his historically dominant self, but he's still a workhorse. 18-plus touches in 5 straight games. He's actually getting more volume now than he was in the first 5 or 6 games of the season. Jets allow a score on 58.3% of red zone trips, and they have the 29th worst red zone defense versus running backs. Next up, receiver, the only one here, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 12%. Gets a good matchup with a Titans team that you're frankly just not worried about scoring first, especially against the Seahawks defense. They have scored first twice in their past 5 games. One of those was a pick 6. It's not going to happen, unlikely to happen, I should say, that they get out in front of the Seahawks, at least with a touchdown before they do. JSN is the best wide receiver in the league this season. He's the second highest wide receiver to score first in our Week 12 projections. So lock him in here as our third pick versus the Titans. Trey McBride of the Cardinals, a rare tight end appearance in here. McBride leads the position at first touchdown probability this week. He scored in 5 straight with 6 total touchdowns. I actually did not mention this earlier in our Jags game, but they have one of the poorest defenses against the position, second most fantasy points allowed, third most yards on average of 9 targets per game. McBride projects for a big one, 7 receptions, 78 yards, almost a 50% anytime TD probability. He's 10% here to score first. Without Marvin Harrison Jr., it's him and Michael Wilson as the top targets for Arizona. And finally, Alvin Kamara. Hear me out on this one, all right? Hear me out on this one, because I know it's like, oh, what? However, the guy I did want to go with isn't playing until Monday night, and I don't like to carry over the round robin onto another day, because then you get weird, poor cash outs if you're hitting on something, whatever. Anyway, hear me out. Alvin Kamara. He's only scored 1 time this year. It was like in week 2, maybe week 1. But they're playing the Falcons, and Bijan would be your presumptive pick in this game. He did have 2 touchdowns this week, and I was thinking about Bijan in this, and then I was looking at the game after Michael Penix left. The Falcons' drives went punt, field goal, punt. You're not putting faith in a team that's doing that did what they did the last time we saw the Kirk Cousins Falcons to get Bijan the ball, who hadn't scored for about 4 weeks before this. And even if they hand him off the ball 25 times, here comes Tyler Algier with your touchdown vulture for like the 8th time this year. Kamara's coming off his best game since week 2. They're not giving the ball to anyone else in this backfield, save for 5 carries to Taysom Hill or so. He was questionable, limited participant in practice yesterday, so he should play. If there was ever a time for Alvin Kamara to rear his head and get the first touchdown, it would be in week 12 versus the Falcons.
Dude, I hope so, because he's just been collecting dust in my fantasy starting lineup all season long. It's been so frustrating. But hey, I like this. If you're going to get creative and do the extra research and say you've got a gut feel, Dave, add it to the round robin. Let's rock.
Thank you.
Some big names and then some tactical names this week. By the way, McBride, it's a bad thing when he's facing a defense that, like, for some reason, I have this stuck in my memory how bad the Jags are against tight ends. Like, I should not be able to remember from weeks ago that they're terrible against tight ends. This is a great spot with Marv's injury as well. I am all in on McBride props this week. So 3 studs, McBride and Kamara to take us home. And by the way, if you did the anytime touchdown parlay, almost 19-1, you still recommend that?
Yep. Yeah. Everyone but Kamara is over 43%. He's right about 31. So he's the lowest on here. But it's juicing up he's like plus 180. So it's getting you pretty good odds here. I play this as an anytime every single week. Seriously, I think with the 2 that we hit, I'd have to do the exact math, but playing a flat unit, this bankrolled the entire season of doing this as an anytime TD play. So you hit 1 more and you're bankrolled until next year.
Yeah, baby. Hopefully we can get 5 years in advance by the end of week.
Yeah. Well, we just need to hit one of these round robins and we'll be good forever.
That would be nice. All right, cool. Thank you very much. Dimers Pro. Promo code podcast. Get 50% off. Check out all of our touchdown probabilities for yourself. We've got first, anytime, 2+, 3+ touchdown probabilities for every single skill position player you're looking to bet on. Let's get personal with it. Let's take a look at what we like for week 12.
It is personal. And Dave's personal play of the week is a nice little 3 touchdown parlay with all 3 of these guys to hit their receiving yards over. I actually have an image of it, and I'll pull it up for everyone to look at here. Trey McBride, T. Higgins, and Christian Watson. Anytime TDs, we got 47% for Higgins, 47% for McBride, 28% for Watson, who I think I talked about him in our waiver wire segment on Tuesday. I think he will be heavily involved this week. Josh Jacobs is like limited practicing in solo drills. I don't think he's going to play. I think there will be more passing in this game and a pretty good matchup with the Vikings, who have let teams get after them a bit. And then taking all 3 of their individual overs. I didn't like the alternate lines. The odds were gross, so I'm just taking the standard lines, which are pretty much all supported by the model. Higgins over 70.5 here, projected for 72.5. McBride over 80.5. He's projected 77.6. I will happily take him to get 4 more yards than that against a vulnerable defense. Christian Watson over 49.5. We have him projected for 52.8. This is a plus 35, 59, 3-guy touchdown and receiving over parlay. I have already locked this in.
Love it. You have been one to watch with this exact formula. So take your 3 guys each week. Give me the overs and the touchdowns, and I'm in on the pitch. I like all 3 guys individually this week, as we've alluded to. I'm going to fade your team, Dave. I'm sorry. I'm going back to the well. This was one of my more tactical early season success stories, was just picking out a receiver that I like to match up for against Dallas and going all in on it. I agree with you. The Dallas defense is the best that it's looked this season. However, I also think there's reason to believe that A.J. Brown is going to have an awesome game. Sometimes whining works, and he's been publicly whining about more involvement over and over and over again. I will turn your attention to Sunday night against Detroit, which, by the way, bad cold weather game. He had more targets and more receptions than he's had all season long. 11 targets for 7 receptions, only 49 yards, partially because it was a weird cold weather game, but he was more involved than he has been all year. Let's take a look at A.J. Brown's history. We know he's had kind of hot stretches, cold stretches here and there. Every year that he has been a Philadelphia Eagle, he's played 2 games against Dallas, and at least one of them, he's popped off for a huge receiving game. In 2022, he had 6 receptions for 103 yards. In 2023, he had 9 receptions for 94 yards. In 2024, he had 5 receptions for 109 yards. Can you tell me what the coincidence was in those 3 games, Dave?
No.
They were in Dallas. He has his big game each year in Dallas inside. I think that's the key here. Against Dallas back in week 1, he only had 1 catch for 8 yards. I don't think that's coming again. So personally, here's my way to play this. I'm doing a little A.J. Brown ladder. 60 plus is minus 118, all the way up to 120 plus at 8-1 odds. I recommend going 60, 80, 100, and 120 rather than betting 8 individual legs. Stagger it by 20-yard increments and get 4 legs. Our model projects him at 64 yards this week, so it does show value on the 60 plus at minus 118. However, I'm just going to throw this out as a secondary bonus play here. Reverse correlation parlay. Thank you to the Dimers projections for this. We project under 4.5 receptions to have a 4.5% edge as an individual prop. We also project 64 yards for A.J. Brown. It is plus 750 to have him go 4 catches or less and 60 plus yards. Let's hope he banks like an 80-yard bomb, finishes with 4 catches for 120 yards, cash the ladder, cash the reverse correlation parlay, and hopefully cash Cowboys money line too.
Thank you. I appreciate that last note there. But that's a very Marvin Harrison Jr. line, DK Metcalf line, if you will. The single, hand count on one hand receptions while going nuclear. Yeah, that is pretty interesting. One huge game every year in Dallas, and yeah, as we know, one catch for 8 yards in week 1.
Why not us, Dave? Why not us, Dave? We'll see what happens.
Not,
all right, let's close the show with what else is on Dimers this week. What do we got?
What's on Dimers this week?
So, as you know, PGA predictions after every round. RSM Classic is underway right now. Got a few guys in play. NFL betting guide will be on site tomorrow, along with our continuing NFL coverage all the way through Monday Night Football, NBA, NHL every night, college hoops in full swing. That's the biggest slate every single night. You have more predictions on Dimers for college hoops than we have for anything on any given day. And next week, Thanksgiving episode. We're going to do one episode next week because of the holiday. We'll drop it in the midweek. We'll let you know exactly when that is. And we'll primarily focus on the Thursday games, maybe do a quick little look at Sunday. But next week, we are going to mostly focus on the 3-game Thanksgiving slate, keep it nice and themed, and then we'll be back to our regular schedule for week 14.
Let's bring a full Thanksgiving meal each next week, Dave. I'll prep you with the turkey. That sound good?
Thanks. Yeah, I love that.
That sounds good. All right. Great show as always, Dave. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who watches this. We will have a special holiday episode for you next week. Make sure you tune in then. Good luck this weekend, everybody. Gamble responsibly, and we'll see you next week.